edition of Cat Calls. I am Cat Bain, your host, and this is my show, Cat Calls, where I interview, honestly, whoever I feel like interviewing. It's often DJs and musicians, but today it is not a DJ and musician. It is a peer of mine. She is a fellow journalist. She is a friend. She has been my editor. We've been all over the world in the scene together. I need you to give a big round of applause right now for Miss Katie Bain. Oh my God, I almost did the thing. I almost said Katie Bain, and that's not her name. Her name is Katie Bain, and I'm Cat Bain, and we are not the same person, although many times people think that we are the same person. We get each other's emails, we get each other's weird assignment pitches, we sometimes get each other's paychecks, sometimes we get each other's hotel rooms, but we are, in fact, two different people. But I might just say we're two very talented people, and we both happen to write about dance music, so I can see how it gets confusing. But we're going to put all of that to rest by appearing simultaneously on your screen at the same time. There's going to be no confusion at all. We're even going to have name tags, so you can't get confused. Katie is the director of Billboard Dance. She's based out in LA, but she's originally from Wisconsin, and she reps that quite proudly. Thank you very much. There is no one else on earth I'd rather be confused for. Honestly, she's very sweet, very talented. You may have seen her in the recent Avicii documentary on Netflix, I'm Tim, which I still have to watch. Don't come for me. Maybe I will do that this weekend. We will see. But I'm sure she gives great interviews in the documentary. Let me know in the chat if you've seen the documentary. Did you recognize Katie in there? She's one of the best to do it. We're going to prove that with some clips of Katie's interviews as a warm-up. Usually we'll play a song from whoever the guest is, but in Katie's case today, we're going to show you some interviews that she's done recently. The first is a clip of her chatting with Justice at South by Southwest 2024. I'm sure she picked that a little bit because she's here on Cat Calls, and you know how we feel about Justice here on Cat Calls. This clip was a bit of a viral moment. It is a confession of guest bards, let's say, and after Katie asked them, to give you some context, she's asking them what they remember about their first Coachella performance in 2007. And then that clip is going to fade into a clip from her Golf Cart Confessions interview series from Insomniac. For years, Katie has ridden with DJs and golf carts to their sets at EDC Vegas, and she gets some great off-the-cuff chats with names you'll likely recognize. But don't go anywhere because these clips are short. And when we come back, we'll have Katie Bain on the phone live. You can see for yourselves that we're different people. And I know it's going to be a great chat. We had a chat over WMC, for WMC just a couple months ago. And it was such an awesome conversation. I knew I wanted to have her here on the show because there's so much more we could talk about journalism, our favorite interviews, why we do this in the first place, and what keeps us going when we're just like, it's hard. But I think that you will enjoy these clips, and I know that you will enjoy this chat with Katie. So see you real soon.
Tell me about your strongest memories of that week and that performance.
We don't remember anything, which is a good sign, generally.
There has to be something. There has to be one thing. Come on.
There is something, but it's a bit shameful for me. It's I guess PETA is not gonna be happy about it, but they
don't say it.
Okay. No, it's a funny memory, but there was a rat going through the crowd, and for some reason I thought it would be funny to kick it. And so I kicked the rat, and it flew over.
It was the most perfect moment of your life so far.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't do it today because rats are living creatures. And I just thought it was some kind of rodent, like doing his life. And afterwards, two little girls came to me and asked, "Why did you kill the rat?" And actually, it was a pet rat, and I felt so embarrassed. Sorry.
That's a true story.
Yes.
Wow.
But the rat is still alive and well.
Is he? He's okay.
Yeah, he's okay.
That's a long lifespan for a rat.
No one was harmed.
Sure. In the kicking of this rat.
Yeah.
Okay. I did not expect that story to go in that direction. Thank you.
Me neither.
I've accidentally called an ex-boyfriend and then was talking about them while he was listening.
That's my worst nightmare.
It was awful. It was awful.
Were you talking shit?
Yeah, absolutely. I was just thinking about it, and then I accidentally dialed it, and it was really bad, because then how do you cover that up? Yeah, it was rough.
Yeah, no.
We don't talk anymore, so...
No, well. Oops.
Shy FX was putting on this party, which is like called Culture. And there was like 200 people there, and it was free, and it was like all male friends from back in the day. None of the turntables worked. So I had to play an hour set on one turntable, and everyone was there expecting like a set. And I was like, I can just play one tune at a time. And that was a little bit embarrassing. You just had to wear a smile and just take it on the chin, you know?
What's your best quality?
I think I try to make everyone feel included. I always want people to have fun and, you know, feel accepted and welcome.
You know what? Who can say their best quality? I just know when I'm up there, I try and give my all. So maybe that's a cool thing. I care about playing good sets.
Yeah.
I try.
Yeah.
We try.
You do your best.
We try. We do.
That's all you can do.
That's all you can do.
What's your worst quality?
Worst quality? I'm just a dick.
What's your best quality?
Apologizing afterwards.
Ta-da! Absolute certain proof that we are not the same person.
Whoa. You heard it here.
It's, you know, it's nothing's even collapsing. Time space is still standing.
Not for us. We don't know how they're doing out there.
I guess that's true. Did you feel it? Did you feel the singularity when KB merged with KB? And yes, Torting Strike, that was Chris Lake. That was a really fun clip of Katie chatting with Chris Lake and Andy C. and Wednesday, right? That's the first one. I didn't write them down in my notes. I'm just remembering. But yeah, I loved that clip where, what's your worst trait? Oh, I'm kind of a dick. What's your best trait? I'm really apologetic about it afterward.
All you can ask.
Those golf cart confessional interviews are so awesome, though. I love the format. I love the concept. How is it for you getting to do those? Like, do the artists just come into it feeling ready to have an off-the-cuff conversation, or do you still have to work some magic because they're on a golf cart?
I would say 99% of the time, there was some sort of magic of being in motion. And like people are kind of like in fight or flight mode of like, where we go, what was happening, what am I going to get to the stage, the firework, you know, it's like there's so much happening around them in terms of stimulus and input that they couldn't help but be really present for it. And so those were some really fun interviews. Obviously they're like off the cuff too and like not super serious in terms of like subject matter.
Right.
But yeah, I found that people were like 99% of the time super game and like quite funny.
I like that. Putting people in like a fish out of water scenario definitely levels the playing field a little bit. Do you have tricks at all for like, you know, I've tried to describe what we do for a living as almost like having a really deep conversation with a stranger, but it's kind of our jobs to make people feel comfortable to do so. And like, honestly, most of the time when I interview people, it's over the phone. So I can't even say that my like cartoonish appearance is part of my arsenal, but like it definitely helps if we're in person, I think. But do you have ways that you try to approach the interview process to just like kind of bring that wall down a little bit, or do you even think about it anymore?
I think that if you kind of like go into it with really regulated energy of just like, hey, hi, we're here, everything's normal.
Yeah.
You're
not uncomfortable at all. You will tell me.
Be in the grocery store, man. Like, we're just gonna have a human to human chat, and there's nothing unusual about this, like, very, when you think about it, unusual situation that we currently find ourselves in.
Yeah.
I mean, being face-to-face in person is the best, but I always like to do it on Zoom when I can, because being able to see somebody and see their reactions and see that they're really listening to you, I think helps put people at ease. Making eye contact, being kind of, you know, like, exactly.
Us right now.
Being right now. You know, being in a position to be able to be reactionary, and having a real conversation versus like cue. A, Q, A. Obviously, you have the questions that you want to get through, and I always have, usually just to the side, like the things that are written down, where it's like, if shit hits the fan, we'll just like go to the questions, get them done and get out of here. But that to me is just a foundation to have a conversation around, and I weave the questions through, but it's not like we're sticking to these points and these points only. Like, let's just talk like real people.
I completely agree. That's one of my favorite like journalism advice points to give people if they're new to interviewing. It's like, you're going to have your questions written down. Of course, you need a roadmap, but it's like talking to a person at a party. And I feel like in the music journalism space, that analogy makes so much sense because we've all had a million party conversations with like a stranger in a bathroom line or somebody over while you're getting a drink. And it's like, okay, if you can pull off those conversations, you can pull off a conversation with an interview. Just allow yourself to actually follow the flow of the conversation, because there's nothing worse than watching an interview or even reading one if it's a Q&A or something. And it's like the artist says something really interesting, and maybe with our journalism brains or just like people brains, you want to follow up on that or ask more. And then they just go, okay, and also this question that's like completely unrelated. I'm always like, don't do that.
Totally. I always try to sit there and think, what do I actually want to know? Because I think that as journalists, sometimes it's like, these are the things that I'm supposed to ask. And like, yeah, we often need to ask that stuff, but it's like, if you kind of like sink a little bit deeper in the thinking of like, on a human level, what am I actually curious about with this person? And then go there. And then, I mean, I think that maybe you feel this way too. I have pretty good memory recall. And so
sometimes
I'm often able to be like, this person said that 3 minutes ago, and let's come back around to it. And I can do a pretty good organization in my head while the conversation is happening. And I look like I'm just sitting here speaking to you, and I am, but there's also some like dials turning up here simultaneously. Yeah, and that's a skill that you obviously have as well.
Okay, that part though, I'm so glad that you said that, because so often when I'm doing an interview with someone, like even now, right? I mean, if you could see my computer screen.
She's doing it right now.
I'm doing it right now.
And I am too.
I know. We were joking in our practice call that like, she was like, inevitably, I'm going to start asking you questions. And, it's just like, who's interviewing the interviewer now? Who watches the watchers? Who interviews the interviewers? I don't know. But if you could see my computer screen right now, it's different doing a stream, right? But I've got Streamlabs, and then I've got the Zoom. I've got two of you. There's two of me. I've got notes with some questions. But at the end of the day, it's like, the real important thing is that we're chatting and we're having a fluid conversation that makes sense. But there are dials twisting and turning every time you do an interview with someone. You're listening actively. You're making sure you don't forget the thing that you had to ask. But it feels like your brain gets broken into like a few different pieces, and you hope the recorder's working the whole time.
Yeah, and, I know we've both had fails where you get to the end of an interview. I mean, this has happened just like a very few number of times in my career, but you get to the end of the interview and none of it is recorded, and that fucking sucks.
Yeah, or like I've had interviews where it's like there's some sort of background noise that makes it difficult, or like, have you ever been... Do you transcribe your own interviews? Do you use like an AI service to do it and then go through it? That's what I've done.
Otter, but I mean, that's
Otter,
important.
yeah.
The process is going through it and re-listening, and just, I mean, I have to. Like,
Same.
When we're doing it in real time, there's no way for me to be like, and at minute 3:37, she said something that I'm really going to want. Like, there's just like, that's not happening. So I have to go back, of course.
Me too. I think it's an important part of my process, because it's like, while the conversation is happening, because of what we were just talking about, there's so many things swirling around in my brain to just make sure I do a good job. I can't, of course, quotes will stick out. Like, when someone says something and you're just like,
I'll say it sometimes like, that's the headline, Okay.
I don't know if that's journalism training or just like something innate for some people, but it's like, man, you hear that quote and you're like, yes, thank you, that's going in. But the transcription and going over everything afterward helps me really figure out like, oh, this is the story. This is like, I can see how the story's gonna make sense and come together and flow. And without going back over it and transcribing it, it's like I need that second lived through process to do that.
Totally. Like I very, very rarely leave an interview having any sense of structure of the story. You know, like maybe sometimes I'm like, okay, that could be the kicker. Maybe we could do the lead here. But I need to do the transcription and the re-listening to like figure out where the pieces go, as you're saying.
Harry Levin's in the chat. Shout out Harry. And he's like constantly writing in my notebook while they talk so the dials don't have to turn upstairs. But that's like another dial because you're like listening while you're writing. Sometimes I take notes on my notes here while I'm doing cat calls or interviewing someone. I use the computer to record most things like phone calls or whatever. And if it's a Zoom, I've got the Zoom recording and my QuickTime recording and I'm doing everything I can. But I don't know. It's this anyway. Interviewing's hard. Here's the thing. Here's what I need you to know: is that Katie and I are legends, and what we do is not easy. Okay.
Whoa. Well, okay.
Just kidding, but not.
Well, I mean, we've done it for a long time, but like, for me, it's the best part of the job.
110%. Yeah. That's why I like ultimately started doing cat calls during COVID because, well, A, I just had a lot more time on my hands, and B, there were so many times when I would be going over transcriptions of interviews that I did, and I'd go, oh man, I wish people could just hear the way this person told this story, or like, you know, because there's all this emphasis and inflection or laughter sometimes in just the conversation that you're having with the artist. And not everything can make the final cut, right? Like some stories, of course, you're just like, oh my God, this was harder. I have to make something out of this. And then some stories you're just like, wow, I wish I could tell everyone what happened in the conversation and I just can't. And so I like cat calls for that because it's like, this is the conversation, you get to see it. It was funny and they were lively or it was, you know, the emotion and what they had to say or whatever. I don't know, but
yeah.
Now I'm just going on a rant, but
oh, no. I mean, like, when an interview is over, that's when you have to work.
I know.
You know, like,
that's true.
Work.
Or like when the show's over or whatever. I remember when I first got started and I started a blog with friends and I'd go with, and or when you're working now and there's a photographer, right? Like photographers have to work after the show too, and they have to put a lot of work into editing and finding the right thing. But there's some part of me that maybe naively is jealous of photographers because it feels like, well, they know how to edit and that's like their brain can go a little bit on like autopilot. And then it's like, oh no, now my brain actually has to do a lot. I have to put this together.
I always think of it in like farming terms, you know, being from, maybe it's a Midwestern, but it's like reaping and sowing. It's like you go out and you like, you know, you get the stuff, you plant your seeds, you ask good questions, you like, this is so dumb. But then you have to like, yeah, you have to like take home what you grew and like make something out of it. So yeah, the interview's the fun stuff.
It is. And I sometimes laugh to myself because it's not like, I liked school a lot. But I never would have guessed that I would sign myself up for a life of having essays due. And that's like exactly what I did.
Girl. Okay. Were you a procrastinator?
Still am, really, at the end of the day, but I'm better. My time management is a little better.
Mine is too, but I mean, I was the kid in high school who, like, I was always a good writer and I enjoyed it, but like my teachers would let me stay home from school the day something was due, and then I would drive my essay to their house at night at like 10 o'clock at night and leave it under their doormat.
That's awesome.
That's how bad of a procrastinator I have been in the past.
But you know what that says to me? That does say to me that you were a good writer and ultimately a good student, because you as an editor and a journalist know this too. I mean, there is a little bit of credence to the, like, if you do good work, you can smudge it a little bit.
I don't know how many other students got those privileges, let's say.
Yes.
Like, I'd like to think that it was worth waiting for, and, they knew that if I would turn something in that would probably get a good grade versus them just failing me for being 5 hours late.
Yeah. Yeah, my friend Catherine Wong, who's also a writer and a documentarian, says, I like the farming analogy. That's a good way of putting it. Never thought of it that way before, so.
The reaping and the sowing. I'm glad that landed for somebody. I felt like I trailed off there a little bit, but you get me. Get me.
Got it.
Yeah. Well, and it's like the reporting of the story is such a pleasure. You're talking to people, you're at the show, you're at the event, you're at the festival, whatever. It's like you're having the most fun. And then you get home and you're like,
I know. Are you a fan of Almost Famous?
Oh, it's the movie that made me want to do what I do.
Right.
I know that I'm not the only person that feels that way.
Yeah. It's, I was watching it recently and I was like, it's kind of the Bible for people in our, but you talking about that just now reminds me of the scene where, like, finally he ends up in the Rolling Stone office and he's just got, like, pieces of paper everywhere and it's like, fuck me, what do I do now?
A blank look on his face and he's so fucking tired. Totally. Like, we've all been there where it's like,
yeah, and that's usually when you're alone, like, surrounded by some delivery food trash, and you're just like, oh! My friend Jordan, who does my hair, and we've lived together for a few years too in the past and throughout parts of my career. I think she's learned that, like, when she cuts my hair, she has to cut it in such a way so that when I'm constantly doing this, it's, like, still gonna look good. She's always like, stop doing that. And I'm like, I can't. Like, this is part of my process. Like, I have to go like this.
I'm glad you became like a fidget. Travels with you anywhere you go.
I guess that's what it is, really.
You guys thought it was just for style. This is absolute function. This is
I need this. This is functionality. That's
multi-dimensional right here. Yeah, but I get you. It gets pretty raw. I mean, when there's a big deadline, it can get quite ugly. Where it's like, if anyone saw what was going on in here right now, they would be concerned.
Yeah.
It would be like a wellness check.
And maybe there should be. No, but you know what? And that's where good editors come into play. And you yourself are in the editor position and have had to work with many a writer, including myself. Is there some way that you, like, what's your approach to the editor job, or like, what, I don't know if I'm asking this in a really great way, but, like, how do you try to work with writers and to get good pieces or help them through the piece sometimes? Obviously it's not always like that, right? It's like, okay, I've had to be, like, talking to editors sometimes, like, help me through this, but a lot of times, okay, I give you the piece, now you read through it, or there's comments. I mean, I don't know how much everyone out there, obviously some people watching in the chat right now are familiar with the process, but for people who watch this in the future, I don't know, like, maybe it's interesting, maybe it's fucking not, and I'm a nerd, but, like, I send a story and you get a story. What's your approach to editing a writer and keeping their voice but making the story as best as possible?
Oh man, I mean, I think good editing is just like turning dials, and for me it's quite instinctual. Like, I don't know that I always, like, read through a story completely before I do any changes to it, just to know what I'm working with.
Smart.
If someone, like, gives you, something that they've fashioned, and you can't start making changes until you know what it is. And then, yeah, I mean, I'm a sucker for scene setting. Like, give me human interest. What's the room like? What does it sound like? I love as much of that as a person can possibly get. So I feel like I'm always asking for more of that. Of, like, what were they wearing? What did they smell like? Not to sound like creepy, but
no, but it's funny you say that, because there was one time I got to interview Rick Ross in person.
Okay.
And I went and gave him a hug. And I constantly tell people, oh my God, he smelled like the finest French cologne and weed. Like, it was just like the best smell. And I could never, I can still smell him. And his sweater was so soft. And it was Rick Ross, so that was cool. But anyway, not that you should necessarily smell everyone you're interviewing. Like, oh, let me get a good.
Yeah, I mean, it's like if it's not there, it's not there. I don't advise you to like lean in and actively try to.
Katie Bain told me I should smell you.
I'm gonna get people in trouble. No, but okay. So I mean, if a story, typically stories come in pretty good shape, I would say. And then the pleasure is like, what are the themes? What is happening in the story? And then what are the broader themes and how can we tie this to other things that are happening culturally? And like, how do we create connective tissue between this story and this artist or this festival and sort of like the broader world? And, that's not always possible, but what it is, I love that stuff of just kind of like threading, because then you're threading stories together really without explicitly saying so.
Yes, totally. I had written down in my notes for this, like, I don't know, maybe you've also had this thought process over the course of your career as well, where like, okay, we interview musicians and that's not the same thing as interviewing politicians or something. Like, we're not interviewing people in the streets of a wartime or a protest or something always, right? But music is one of the basic languages of like global culture, and the creation of art is so important. It's inherently political in a lot of ways, but even when it's not about something serious, it still is like a very important part of people's lives. And I think it's cool that we can approach topics or just things that are happening in the world through this lens of something that is entertaining or a form of escapism, or like, I don't know, there are ways to bring the broader world and context of our lives into these conversations with DJs or whoever it is.
Absolutely. Some of my favorite stories that I've done, it's like, were in a way about like geopolitics or the environment or the pandemic, told through the lens of music and music related events. And those are the best, and you're connecting to something bigger, you're connecting to, like broader cultural issues. And as you're saying, like music in and of itself is extremely important. It's, and it's incredibly personal. And that's what I love talking to artists about. Like 9 times out of 10, I think it's hard to find an artist that doesn't feel a lot of different ways about this thing that they've made.
Oh, I'm a sucker for the. I'm sorry.
It's like I've had artists that we know and love after interviews be like, that really felt like just like a therapy session.
Yes.
Which for me is so great.
Yes.
Like I'm a very relational person. Like I want to know how everybody is feeling deep inside, like to a certain extent, but like I'm so curious about people in that way. And art, I think is inherently emotional. It's extremely vulnerable. And so I love talking about it through that lens as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like, I'm a sucker for the existential human condition of it all. And like at the end of the day, that's so many of the conversations we have. And it's awesome when an artist has put so much of themselves into an album or something, a song, a tour, whatever, and to get to have that vulnerable conversation with them and share that experience. That's really cool about our job, right? And then it's like, for a moment, I don't know if they ever really stop thinking about like, and now this person's going to share that with the internet and the world. But it's good to create a space where people feel like they can and they want to,
They can and they want to, and that they're safe to do so because you're not going to do anything that's dicey with what they've shared with you afterwards. Like it is, you have to bring a level of integrity to this stuff, because the conversations that you and I like to have, like we want to go there, but I'm not going to have you tell me something that's like extraordinarily personal and then like do something that feels wrong.
Yeah.
With, like who
or just out of context. Like
I'm always, those are just not the stories that I want to do because it's not correct.
Yeah, it's like I kind of going back to the Almost Famous thing. I often think to myself, okay, it's not that I'm writing a piece because I want the artist to like be my best friend and love me forever, but I want them to feel represented properly.
That's exactly it.
I want them to be like, okay, yes, that's what I said and I meant, and I don't feel like that was taken out of context or misquoted or whatever. It's like you just want to be, but you want
to be fair, and it's not to say like that we don't ask hard questions or touch upon topics
when you should,
and sometimes sometimes you have to, and like often you should. And a documentary filmmaker who I was speaking with a few months ago said, like, in my films, I tell the subject they're gonna like 70% of what I do. And they're probably not gonna love like another 30%. And I think that feels right because it just feels honest. Like nobody's perfect. Everybody has troubles. Everybody has struggles. That's the interesting stuff.
It is. Yes, that is inherently the interesting stuff. Yeah.
When someone gives that to you, like I think that you do, like, the part of the agreement is, as you're saying, like you're going to treat that with fairness and integrity, and not do anything that is out of context or not nice with it.
And Harry, I see you talking about wrote an electronic musicians in Iran under the regime piece and how it was powerful. You should drop the link in the chat. You should put it there for people to check out and read. And then post it in a comment under the YouTube video here so people can click on it in the future. I also, totally 180ing almost, but I love the clip that you chose from the like hour-long Justice South by Southwest interview where it's like so funny. I love that clip because it's not unlike talking to the Justice guys. Like, first of all, you have to get past the point that it's slightly intimidating the first time. It's intimidating the first time to be in the room with them.
I don't know if you can see how sweaty I was in that video, just on stage being like, this is the most important moment of my life. I mean, like,
I know. Also, what a fucking cool thing to do. Was that the keynote speech?
It was a keynote at not this year, but the year
2024.
Yeah, and it was really great. And but like I'm sure you've had this moment too, where you prepare and you prepare and you prepare to a level where it's like maybe in the hours leading up to it, there's a nervousness. But then you get on stage and it's kind of like this zen comes over you and you're like, well, now we're just talking.
Yeah.
Now we're just having a conversation. And so, yeah, I was definitely sweaty, but I felt like I was fairly in control.
Yeah. But I love that clip. And of course he tells this insane out of nowhere story. So you're like, what do you remember most about playing Coachella for the first time? And they're like, I kicked a rat like across the room. And my favorite is when you're like, I did not expect that to go in that direction. It's the most honest, awesome reaction because I'm just like, what?
I'm still a little bit confused about what happened to that rat. Because then it was spoken about as if it was like potentially still alive.
And they're like, it was someone's pet and the rat is fine.
2008 or 2007? So I'm like, the rat isn't like, maybe the rat was fine then, but it's definitely dead now. Yeah. Is that story even true? What is
Yeah, it reminded me of when I was interviewing them for the vlogumentary that I did. Personal plug, on this
If you guys
YouTube
haven't
channel.
watched it, take 40 minutes after this and
Yeah.
do your favor, honestly. Yeah.
But there's a clip from that. Well, it's not in the video, but when I sat with them and I interviewed them, because I interviewed them for like 20 minutes, and the video itself is like 35 minutes, so of course I couldn't have everything. But there was this part where I was asking about what concerts have they seen that inspired them, and the response was, we don't go to concerts, which is in the vlog. They're just like, concerts are boring. But Xavier's like, I've been to some shows, and he's like, I saw James Brown and I saw a magician change his clothes 100 times in an hour. That was great. And I'm just like, literally, who are you people? And then Gaspar starts telling me this story. Xavier's like, tell the Beatles story. And I'm thinking, oh wow, did he like see like a Beatle or something, like the musical act? And Gaspar starts telling this story about how he like went to a music festival, a camping music festival, and he was like in the campground and he felt something on his leg, and then he like took his pants off and there was like a beetle digging into his leg or something. And I'm just sitting here like, what? And Xavier's like, tell the story. And I'm like, this is the story? This has nothing to do with anything. You people are psychos. Like,
Totally similar to the rat story where you're like, what?
I know. I'm like, moving on. Back to that list of questions I brought with me.
Yeah, just like adventures in nature.
Maybe there's a
that.
side series here where we just finally get down to Gaspar's outdoorsman activities, and it's like, sir, you and animals, what's going on? But anyway, I thought it was just funny. It was Ringo. He's been banned from several campgrounds. That's what Joey Headset says in the chat.
Copy. That's funny.
Yes, but anyway, I just thought that was a great clip. But speaking of Frenchies with incredible stage productions, you recently chatted with the team behind Gesaffelstein's awesome live show for Billboard. And I love that you did that story too, because similar to the vlog, like, you're letting the people behind these insane shows, their work and their dedication get documented, and giving a little bit of insight into, these incredible things that we're watching happening on stage. And that's different from the typical artist interview, but it was a great piece, and I'd love to hear how that was for you.
I mean, tangentially, have you read that piece, the music journalism classic Hallmark, Frank Sinatra Has a Cold?
Oh, yeah, yes.
Yeah.
Not in a long
Yeah.
time. We should link that in the comments below as well.
Okay, first of all, it's very long. I read it recently. I read it out loud to my boyfriend on a road trip.
And then you realized how long it really was.
Very long. It's very long, but it's worth reading. But my point in saying that is, famously that story is he interviews all of the people around Sinatra, because Sinatra's not going to do the interview. And I'm not saying I did even 1% of what Gay Talese did, Talese? How do you say
I think
it?
it's Talese.
Anyway.
Talese sounds great though. It rhymes. Gay Talese.
I'm not comparing myself to this, extremely important work of journalism.
Right.
But it's really interesting to talk to the people around the thing. Mm-hmm. And to kind of see it from all of these different angles and get their point of view on the artist and the music and what they do. I actually really love doing that. And, Gesaffelstein doesn't do interviews. And so this was the way to approach it. And I was really happy with how that story turned out. And I'm just fascinated by that whole thing. So I was glad to unpack it a little bit.
Yeah, and there's such good details in it too. I love, little things like, oh, he's got this F1 style in-ear monitor, and he sees himself as a part of the set even. It's not even so much oh, I'm an artist on stage doing a thing, but it's all this thought out place or I don't know, setting.
Exactly. It's very theatrical. It's almost he's a piece of art in a museum or something, or he's a sculpture in this fantastical world that they created with that show. But yeah, I hadn't thought about it that way until I talked to them. And, I had so many questions about the mask, just on a functional level.
I know.
Can he see? As it turns out, he cannot.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, well, he can kind of see into the front row, but beyond that, he's kind of like going blind. But I loved it was like, the quote was something along the lines of like, he's not there to have a good time. Music is intense. He's there to work. And I was like, fuck, that's so hardcore. That's so cool. Damn.
I know, that is awesome. And I believe it.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, we talked about the mask, and I should have asked more follow-up questions about this, but there was also an interesting comment about how the mask is, partially inspired by a picture of Dorian Gray.
Oh, very cool.
If you remember the themes of that story, is like someone basically sells their soul for beauty, and and commits a lot of really terrible sins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that picture, it gets scary. What a great, I love Oscar Wilde personally. So it's anytime, I think this is the first Oscar Wilde reference on a cat call. So I appreciate that. Appreciate that. Were there any other tidbits from that chat that didn't make the final cut? Like there were things that I just couldn't put in, like for instance, in the Justice video, I spoke to the production guys and I wanted to include this, but I just didn't. It's like the lighting guy, Lewis, and the production manager, Manu, they work with lots of other acts, including L'Imperatrice and Phoenix and, all these other great, often French artists. But they don't tour with those other artists. But with Justice, they go to every single show because, and this wasn't the video, but like part of what they have to do out there is just, this part wasn't, is like argue with the venue every time they show up with all this insane equipment that no one's ever seen before, to trust them and let them hang all these lights and hang all this stuff and like say like, yes, you can fit it all and it will work. Like we built it, like let us put it up.
It's interesting to me that that's an argument every time and not kind of like laid out contractually of like, you've got to trust us.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it is too, but it's like they do like stand up for it is what he was saying. And so that's part of it too, and just making sure that it all works out well. But I don't know. Did you have any interesting tidbits that didn't make the final cut?
Oh, my neighbor just is, can you hear his motorcycle?
Nope, turn it up. Try harder, dude.
My neighbor's like a really cool motorcycle guy, and he's riding away.
That's awesome.
Is there anything that didn't make it?
Or in any of your other interviews recently that you've done, they're like things that stick out? Because that is a hard part sometimes.
No, I mean, maybe like, one thing that I always do at the end is when the story is written, I will go through with like, what are they, like a sifter, when you're like sifting sand, and I like looking for just scrap metal or whatever on the beach. Like I will go through fine tooth comb, like almost every line, like, is there anything here that I can pull out and like throw in somewhere?
Yeah, yeah.
And so, on that one, I think like, so to speak, I picked the bone pretty clean.
Nice. Nice.
That story. I'm trying to think of like anything interesting that was left out of a recent piece that I was into.
And the reason this might happen, in case anybody doesn't know, is because word counts are a thing in journalism as well. I mean, you get to be a little bit more, you're in the director's chair, right? So you probably get to just decide, okay, the story ends here. But you still have to be cognizant of these things because it's like...
Absolutely, because people, like,
what are people going to read?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Where it's like, I would love to write. I mean, I know I wouldn't, but like 3,000 words. And you can do that once in a while. I do. We all have.
Definitely.
Now, obviously, a Q&A format reads differently than a write-through feature. Like the eye moves differently on the page when you're reading like question, answer. But yeah, like online digital stories can't be that long.
I know.
Because people don't always get through that.
I know. And that's something that I'm just now thinking, I don't know if anyone outside of the profession really thinks about that stuff, but that's a huge part of what we do too. It's just like understanding and curating the story and the information for the reader who now lives in this post MTV TikTok. Like, I say MTV because they came up with like the fast cuts. And I think even before we had social media, that was like where it all started to get choppier and choppier and choppier. And like people need a lot of stimulation and they need, they expect a lot of color and this and that activity, weird swooshy cuts and stuff. I don't know if you've watched an episode of MTV Cribs from the 2000s in any time recently, but it is fucking unwatchable. Like, I loved that show and I watched Cribs all the time. When you actually watch it now, it's like, it feels like you're gonna have an epileptic fit simply because it's constant motion. It's constant motion. They'll repeat the same clip 3 times while the voice is over it. And I'm just like, this is a psychedelic breakout. Like, we watched this.
Super interesting. Like we could do a pop-up video. Shout out VH1. But like 2 Cribs back in the day and just do like whoa.
Someone like, how much cocaine was the editor on and why was that allowed? Like, this is insane. And I can't say that. I don't know that they were on drugs, but like, I think that's really, and now I'm like, I should write about this. I should write a Cat's Girls essay about this or something. Like, what the hell was wrong with people?
Cribs primed us for TikTok.
Yes, and now it's like, okay, now people's attention spans are even lower. And you're competing with notifications and things. So it's like, you want your story to be compelling, but you want them to get to the end.
I never would like take important pieces out of a story just to make it short.
Yeah.
You don't like handicap a piece just in the service of like cutting the length, but it is just a consideration of like, if things get too long, no one's going to get to the end except the hardcore readers. And sometimes you want, you got to trust the audience too sometimes. Like the people that really want to know about this will read the entire story.
I know. Those are my people right there, man. The people who really want, the nerds. We're doing it for you, nerds. I hope you like this one. I did it for you. Oh man, I'm just, it's how do you feel? You've been at Billboard now for, oh my god, has it been like 5 years?
It was 6 years on June 2nd.
Wow, congratulations.
I've never done anything in my life for 6 years. It's longer than I've lived in like any house. It's longer than I've ever gone to school anywhere. It's longer
That's
than
amazing.
And it's just like it's my longest thing.
This 6 years has flown by like crazy, but yes. But how does it feel? I feel like you do such a good job. Billboard's an interesting place to be, right? Because it is like one of the biggest names for music journalism and music in general, right? It is the stat keeper. It is the charts. And so it's like there's this mainstream element of it, and dance music is like, it is mainstream, but it's not as mainstream as it was when you and I first started being confused for each other in the early to mid 2010s. And
we don't call it the EDM era. We call it the era when we started being confused for each other.
Yeah. When we first started confusing everybody. But how do you balance like getting the clickbaity news in, getting the human interest feature, getting the stuff you just have to cover because it's Billboard and you have to cover that stuff? How do you think about all that?
It's a good question. I mean, a lot of it is instinct.
Yeah.
Like, I think that anyone that has done what we do for as long, like you kind of, what good news is. Mm-hmm. Obviously things can go viral and blow up in ways that you didn't expect. But if, a news item, wherever it falls in like the spectrum of electronic music, like good news is good news. And so, I mean, that's just kind of, I don't want to say obvious, but instinctual. And then with features, it's like, yeah. There are artists that like the Billboard audience loves. A lot of those artists I love myself. And then, I have the, pleasure and the privilege to like also lead with my own curiosity and cover the artists that, I think are compelling and I imagine other people think are compelling as well.
And
It's
like,
kind of like a general answer, but that feels correct for me.
no, I love it. And it leads into another question I had, which is what are some artists that you feel are compelling right now, or what seems exciting to you in the dance music space right now, or the electronic music space, even if it's not just an artist, but like, I don't know, what is intriguing your mind these days? And, what are you listening to, and what are you like, ooh, that seems interesting. What is this thing happening over here? I want to go check it out. Or
I've been thinking a lot. You kind of just mentioned it, of just like how electronic music is being received in like the broader culture. I was having a conversation with someone yesterday of like, 2012, 13, like Avicii was a Ralph Lauren model, and Swedish House Mafia made a music video that was an Absolute commercial. And there were just these like crazy brand crossover moments in addition to the music. And you don't really see that as much anymore. And it's like, how do we demonstrate to people that aren't kind of like saturated in this world as we are, that this stuff is really huge? Like the structures of the music have changed in terms of what's popular, to the extent that like it doesn't cross over to the big charts in the same way, unless, it's like abracadabra, like a Lady Gaga song, what have you, or like a Charlie's. And those moments are obviously like huge and important and like bring people in and like open the doors to club culture and dance music culture and like its many facets. But how do you kind of emphasize to someone that doesn't know like how big the Mau P show at Coachella was? Like this is a huge artist. This guy just sold out 2 nights at the State Historic Park in LA, and he's not a household name. But it's like, why isn't he getting like, could he, and how does he? How does someone like that kind of cross over in that same way in terms of like general visibility?
Yeah.
I think that's kind of like working over I don't have an answer for it yet, but I'm, thinking about that.
Yeah. And that is interesting too. It's like there was this moment in the 2010s where dance music was the inescapable sound, and you had people from other genres clamoring to collaborate with someone from this world. And of course we still have those crossover collaborations, and like you said, some of the biggest albums out right now will have production credits from some of the heavyweights of dance music, like Gesaffelstein, or
that was like another reason that I really wanted to do that story. It's like the moment that he was on stage with Lady Gaga.
Oh yeah, talk about your human setting it up. That was a great setting it up bit.
Wow, like it was just such a moment. But sorry, I interrupted you.
No. But it's like those. But there's definitely been like, it's hard to say that dance music has gone back underground, because that doesn't feel exactly right. But it's definitely not the thing. But then you've got its influence, and club culture is still a big part of pop music, thanks to people like Charlie XCX and Lady Gaga, who are the thing. Like Brat Summer was the summer of 2024, and that was the album of 2024, in my opinion, based off the memes. Obviously there were other things. Cowboy Carter won the Grammy and all these things, and there were other big albums, but that was like a moment that people will point to culturally when they do I Love the 2020s on whatever VH1 is 40 years from now or whatever. But
like, never talking head on that program, and I cannot wait.
But
that was like a dream in college to be like, I want to be on like an I Love the 20s.
Right? But you know what?
Know about this era, yeah.
You got to be a talking head in the Avicii documentary. You're a talking head.
You're right. I did live that dream in a way. Yeah.
Not in a way you were. It wasn't like zany. You weren't cracking jokes about it, really.
No. But yeah.
Still so fucking cool. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, I mean, like what you're saying is important. Like, and I think about like the crossover aspect. I'm like, have the structures of popular dance music changed to the extent that it's just like it's not really pop music anymore? You know, like it's more tech house or like,
Yeah.
you know, the variations of what John Summit does, or you know, like it's just these songs are huge, but they're not in the structure that would allow them to exist in sort of like the most visible places.
Yeah. Yeah. And in a sense, maybe that's, Torden Strike says, Katie Bain is our David Byrne, because I said you're a talking head. And I just thought that joke was
Nicest
great.
thing anyone's ever said to me.
So I said that out loud, yeah. But I think in some ways it's, you know, everything is cyclical, and whatever's the coolest thing or the most popular thing will not be the most popular thing in 5 years, because that's just impossible. Change is inevitable. But like, maybe it's healthy for dance music to go back into itself a little bit. And I still feel like there's something must be coming, you know what I mean? Like so you were talking about like tech house culture has been tech house culture for a while now. Of course, I was happy to see the blog house aesthetic come back a bit with Brat, and like I love that I'm old enough now that the kids have a name for my 20s, and it's Indie Sleaze, and it can be back because it's been fucking almost 20 years since then, and that's great for me. But
yeah,
what is like what's going to be the next thing that like sparks a revolution of sound? And that's not for us to know. We're not the ones who are going to make it up.
Are you asking me right now?
No, I'm not. Yeah. But I'm curious about it constantly too. And like, it will happen eventually, but
it will. And it seems like everybody's ready for it.
Yeah, right? That's kind of what I'm,
like,
yeah.
Yeah, like people are ready for something really weird and different. And
I love
it's
it.
It's like a really, you know, it's a challenging time to be making music. I think a lot of people are burnt out. I think that like there is the culture of, you know, social media like is a whole beast unto itself, and people are like constantly feeding that to feed the algorithm, to build the audience, to get the, you know, it's like it's not the easiest time to be an artist, because there are a ton of distractions and a ton of demands.
Yeah.
And so I hope someone can just like go on a vision quest and take some time off, like, you know, reap and sow and bring back something really freaking weird.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
The hyperpop thing was that for sure. I love 100 Gex, and I love, you know, Charlie's adjacent to that too, and like Sophie R.I.P. and that whole like we're gonna do pop music, and everything that should be bad as far as pretentious taste is concerned, we're gonna wear it on our sleeve and we're gonna fucking do it up. I love that. But even that now is like 5 years old or something. So it's, you know.
But it's like great to see someone like A.G. Cook be having a moment in the wake of Brat too. Like seeing him at Coachella and Portola, it's like those sets are amazing. And like if a mainstream cultural moment gets him in front of a bigger audience, like that can only be a good thing as far as I'm concerned.
I think sometimes too, it's like, it's our job as music journalists to have like really big brain thoughts about this stuff and be like, zoom out, what does it look like? What? And it's like, you know, at the end of the day, it's just like people listening to music on streaming services, they have tastes that is varied, and they're consuming a lot of culture, and like, it's not like, I don't know. Sometimes I'm like, am I overthinking this a little bit? And the answer is yes, and I won't stop. But like,
also, you made that your job. Like, you're so good at thinking things, and people actually give you money for it. So there's something to be said for that. Yeah.
That, you know, I was. This is an interesting thing to end on, or as we get close to the ending on. But I was just having this conversation the other day about like, there are a lot of young bloggers out there, right? Young journalists, young people who want to get involved in writing and being a music journalist, and I've talked to some people and they'll talk about how they basically write for free. They write for free tickets. They do all this stuff. And I'm always like, get paid. That like fucking, we should all be getting paid for what we do. Because when your rate is free, my rate inherently goes down because we're all connected here. But I bring this up because, first of all, because A, that's facts. But B, because, you know, I've had people say to me, oh, but I've never really done this before. And I'm like, have you been listening to music your whole life?
Totally.
And have you been reading pieces of music journalism obsessively since you were like a teenager? And do you know a lot about, and do you think about it a lot? Like, well, that's why you deserve to do this. Like, you're not coming at this from nowhere. It's like you just said, oh, I've overthought a lot and I've read a lot about music. And that's like, I went to journalism school and I learned about journalism, but it's not like journalism school taught me to be an insane person about music, you know, and have these thoughts. But like, that's what we are at the end of the day. We're insane people who think about this stuff way too deeply.
And we'd be doing it regardless. So we're lucky that we can get a job. But I mean, it makes me think of this tweet. I mean, this is a long time ago. I think it was Jessica Hopper who said like something about like fangirls. And then it said, replace the term fangirl with expert. And that's what it is. Like, you can be condescending and pejorative, but yeah, like that 13-year-old knows a lot about One Direction. And like, because you don't, you know, like whatever, however you want to case it, like these people are experts, whether they're, you know, in the traditional sense or not.
Yeah, and whether you think what they're an expert on is silly or not, it still makes them an expert.
Big part of it. That's a big one. Like, it doesn't take away the fact that they know like everything about Louis Tomlinson.
Yeah. Okay, this leads me to one more thing I did want to chat with you about. When you were coming up, did you have a mentor, and what was some of the best advice the mentors in your life gave you about doing this job? That ring in your head through the years.
I was very, very, very lucky to be surrounded by some very exceptional writers and editors at LA Weekly. I mean, like throughout my career, but LA Weekly for me was the place where I'm like, oh wow, like I want to be like these people, and these people are my friends. And so one piece of advice, it's not necessarily writing related, but oh gosh, let me think of the exact wording. It's like there are three things, you have to be two of them. Really good, like really talented, on time, and a pleasure to work with. If you can pull up two of those three, then you're working.
That's so right. That is so right.
I mean, three is ideal, but like try for two.
Yeah, that's the key right there. I'm so glad I asked you, because that's like another thing that I feel like I've inherently sort of known, but I'm like, oh, somebody really put that into a concise bullet point that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's good advice.
Mm-hmm.
The world, you know, like I'm queen procrastinator, so like I try to be the other two. Try. So
same, yeah. Oh man, and you know, if you're a pleasure to work with and on time, and the writing's just not your best, well, at least you've got a little bit of wiggle room to make some edits because you were on time.
Exactly. And you're just like, you're such a pleasure to converse with about the edits that like it's really just better for everybody.
That is
involved.
one thing that I love editors. I mean, I'm proud to say that I think I most of the time turn in pretty good, clean copy, and I don't have to go through the world's worst round of edits.
Exceptionally clean. As someone who's had the pleasure to edit you, it's clean.
Thank you. But yeah. I love working with great editors such as yourself, because I almost never am just like, oh, what that person changed or asked to move around. It's like, oh, no, I think that did make it better. Or like, oh, thanks for asking me to clarify this or kind of change this because I see what you're getting at here. And when you're the one writing it all out, it's like, you know, it's a lot happening in your brain that you're trying to sort through. And I know I feel sometimes like I'm an outlier because a lot of people, it's hard for them. It's like, you got to kill your darlings sort of concept where it's like, don't be so married to what you write that you're closed off to too many suggestions, because if something's obviously not gonna, if you really don't think it's a good edit, like sometimes I'll argue like, okay, can I explain this better? Because I think it's an important thing to keep in the piece for whatever reason or something like that. But like, you have to be open to your editor and not see your editor as your enemy. They're not trying to kill your piece or change it or do whatever.
And we've all had like all different types of editors, but I mean, I think that you like, if you don't like what I've done, like talk to me about it.
Right.
I always do suggestions. I never come in and just like start massively changing copy. And I think in just the way that I work, like most of my edits are questions of like, let me get a little bit more here. It's like, because as you said, as we're writing, we're not necessarily thinking of every facet of every piece of information. So I'm just here to like, be like, tell me more about that. Or what did they see? Turning the dials that way.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else? My favorite last journalism question. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you'd like to mention or you'd like to say or that you were thinking about before I let you go? Because it has been over an hour since I started the stream, over an hour since you joined my Zoom link. It goes fast, right?
Let's go fast. I don't think
Katie's like, I know it's been an hour. It feels like it's been 3 hours. No, I'm just kidding.
This has been a real slog. No, it's just such a pleasure, my friend. You are so good at what you do, and you make it really easy. And I really respect that you do this, and you're consistent, and
Try.
It's wonderful to put yourself out there. So I just want to commend you for continuing to do it.
Thank you. And this has been such a great chat. Like I knew it would be, because look, we chat all the time. We work together. We get to see each other actually almost once a year, as it turns out sometimes. I don't know when the next time
at the KB convention.
Yes, yeah.
We didn't even get into any of our wacky KB stories.
I know. Well, I tried. What's cool is, to the point, as we just ran through this conversation as like fluidly as possible. And I did touch on some of my notes, but mostly we lived up to what we were saying at the beginning of the chat, where I was like, we're just talking. But I knew this would be good. And I appreciate getting to chat like shop talk with someone too. And maybe you've been interviewed by other people too a few times, and there's always like, sometimes I've been interviewed by people and sometimes they don't ask me what I want them to ask me about being a journalist. They'll ask me about like just music stuff, and I'm like, let's talk about storycraft and let's talk about
I'm so glad you phrased it that way, because I was thinking that too. Like, sometimes like I don't know everything about the electronic scene. Like, I know a lot, we know a lot, but like, that's why I asked the question.
Right, yeah, right.
But what I do all day, every day, is the journalism. Yeah. So I love talking about that.
Me too. And this was an awesome opportunity to do that. And anything you want to plug? You did tell me on the practice call that you had some cool stuff coming. Is like on the Billboard socials or on the Billboard Dance Vertical, or like, I know you've done some cool things. So
there's a fun interview that was such a pleasure, and I don't want to blow the surprise, but it's someone I think we all know and love.
We definitely do all know and love and respect.
In a fun setting, showing a skill set that we didn't necessarily know this person had. So I would say in the next 2 weeks, that interview will be up. It's a video, and I had a pleasure doing it. I haven't seen the finished product yet, but I'm excited to see it.
I am jealous of you in that regard. It's like, ooh, I did the fun video and I haven't looked at it since I started. I'm like, fucker, I have shit I have to edit. Not you. I'm not saying fucker to you. I'm saying fucker to the universe. Like, man, I need to sit down and edit the things I did. It would be nice to have an editor one day.
Then, like, you get to do the thing, and then you get to walk away and like bless our wonderful video team that are so talented and work very hard to bring all this stuff together.
It is really fun though. I'm really glad that I've started doing more video stuff and editing because it is fun, but it is hard work. So God bless the Billboard video editing team. They're putting in work. They are.
They really are. Yeah, they're very good.
Well, keep your eyes on the Billboard Dance social media and the Billboard Dance. It's billboard.com/dance. That's still the website, right? Or did it change for some reason?
Billboard.com/T/dance.
Oh, the T.
The T is important.
The T.
It's put it in there, you'll get all the dance stuff.
Okay, hell yeah. And of course, Bain of Your Existence, which is such a good handle. Can we talk about the handle real quick before we go? Was that like when did you first come up with Bain of Your Existence? Because it's so good.
It must have been 2010 or 11. And it just seemed like the obvious choice. I don't remember having like a eureka moment or anything.
Right.
But like, of course that's what it's going to be.
Yeah.
My name. And that's who I am to y'all.
I know, and it's so great how like I feel this way about like my Gmail is seriouslycat@gmail.com. You know, but it's SRSLYKAT. And whenever I'm telling that to someone in like an official capacity where it's like a business, like okay, I'm signing up for movers or I'm signing up for whatever the fuck. I always spell it out, and I'm always like, it's seriously without the vowels. It's seriously cat. And it's like, yeah, okay, I came up with this Gmail when I was in college, and I'm like terminally online, and I'm like a millennial. So, but now it's like, that's my professional email, and it has been for fucking almost 15 years. And like, sometimes people are like, oh, I tried you at your other email, catbain@gmail.com or whatever. And I'm just like, no such email exists. If anyone's responding to you there, that's not me. It is
like
this silly email.
It really gets to me, but it doesn't ultimately get to anybody.
I guess so, yeah. I mean, I don't know. Sometimes people tell me they email that, and I'm like, I don't know what that is. If someone's out there responding to catbain@gmail.com, it's not me. That would be insane. That's it. No. There can't be another.
Possibly. I thought that there might be a third.
Oh no, I don't. Well, you know, out there probably, but
yeah.
In here, it's our time. It's our time down here. All right, I'm done. Our time. I'm done. I'm letting you go. Please enjoy the rest of your evening. We're gonna go out with a clip from a Sophie Tucker interview that you did for Billboard. Do you want to say anything about that clip on the way out?
Oh, just that they're the best, and this was just a funny moment that made me laugh.
Yeah, it is really cute, and they are great. You get to interview so many great people. I mean, I do too, but it's like, it's what a pleasure our job is.
It's such a pleasure. It really is. So thanks for letting me talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe now that I have extra time on my hands because I'm technically unemployed, I've even been thinking in my head, ooh, this might be a good clip to share on social media. Maybe I'll make some little clips of the chat and share them. So you let me know if you had a favorite part, if you remember any of it.
It's all a blur, but it'll come to me.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Katie. It's a pleasure. Can't wait to run into you somewhere out there and certainly in my inbox and on social media.
Cool. Thank you.
See ya. Bye.
Bye.
And we're done. We did it. And it looks like the stream was smooth the entire time. So big ups to me. Nobody said that it sounded weird. So I feel like the new space is working out so far. I obviously still, I need to do some decorating. I don't have all the same colorful lights that I usually have, but we're figuring it out and we'll see how long I'm here. But I appreciate you, Tordenstrike and Harry and Catherine and Joey and everyone who was in the chat and everyone who was watching and not chatting. I appreciate you sticking with us through the whole chat. It's easy to stick around when the guest is as great as Katie Bain, I imagine, because we had such a great conversation. I really loved getting to chat with her about what it is that we do, and maybe some of it was informative. I think for the other writers in the chat, you probably appreciated some of that because I know that I appreciated a lot of what she had to say. And maybe I will put some clips together for social media. Fingers crossed. Now that I'm settling into this space for the time being, I can't say who will be the next Cat Calls guest just yet, but I'm working on some things, and I should be back in July with a guest. And I am going to edit that Pilo video, so please keep your eyes on the YouTube channel right here for that. And Cat Scrawls should be coming back to work as well. I'm really excited about just having more space and time to work on the Super Cat World universe. So I hope to see you all there participating. And yeah, believe it or not, Torden Strike, I will finish that orbital video. That's part of my plan, is I want to get some of these archive videos that I've had in the vault forever. The vault being the guilt trip part of my brain. I want to get those out. And that one's like halfway done, so it just needs to be finished. So yeah, but to see us out, Katie Bain talking to Sophie Tucker, and I love you all. Hit me in the Discord. I'll share the clip, the links below and in the chat. Torden Strike, drop the Discord link. All right, I love y'all. Have a good night. Thanks for coming.
You walk into a bakery, every type of bread is available. What type of bread do you choose?
Can I tell you the most ironic thing?
Are you allergic to gluten?
We're both gluten-free.
However, we're connoisseurs of gluten-free bread.
True.
And in Europe, none of the rules count.
Yeah, gluten doesn't, we're not celiac, we're just
We're
like
not celiac.
gluten-free.
So you could eat European bread?
Yes.
It really doesn't
Literally,
bother
it
me
doesn't
that
bother
much.
me at all.
So you're in Paris, you walk into a Parisian bakery. What do you grab first?
Croissant.
For sure.
People gather all the time around bread, to break bread together, different points of view, people from different backgrounds and cultures. And like, these are all things we want our music to do, is bring people together. We're bringing cultures together with the music, like.
And bread gives you pure energy.
And bread gives you energy.
And that's what we want our music to do for people.
So we made an acronym out of bread also, which is Be Really Energetic and Dance, which is simple, to the point, just like bread. If you want to go deeper, there's many things, as we've talked about. But if you don't, and you just think it's kind of fun, and it's called bread, and you want to dance and have fun and not think too hard, we're here for you too.